I love short-term rentals. They work really good for me. But whatever it is, you should really be looking at your wealth. Like, don't say I'll do that next year, because you'll do that for the next 10 or 15 years. Just think about what you want your life to look like someday and really take a couple of calculated risks, especially if you're under 50 or if you're under 55, you still have time to actually create some real wealth. We did this within 10 years. And I never thought I would have a net worth. I saw those kinds of things and I was like, I don't even know what that means. And now I have a net worth. I want it to be bigger, but it doesn't matter. Like, a $200,000 net worth is better than a $0 net worth. Like, think about this as assets and investments, not buying liabilities. Like, think about buying a house that makes you enough money that pays for your car. Like, that is a beautiful version of math that I want more women to be thinking of. And honestly, men can do this. They're great at it too. I have plenty of dude friends that do this.
Business Money Podcast. 1, 2, 3, 4. Business Money Podcast Fearless. Business Money Podcast Fearless. Business Money Podcast.
Welcome to the Business Money Podcast, where intelligent financing meets strategic thinking. Today, we have a really good subject to talk to everyone about. And what is it about? Usually when you're investing into what? Maybe making some investments with your savings. You're going to go into investment properties. What type of investment properties make sense? Short-term rentals, long-term rentals. Well, we have an expert right now that is going to walk us through all of these. So Tanya Rooney, which she is an investor and a short-term rental expert. So Tanya, great to see you. How are you today?
I'm wonderful, and I'm super excited to be here to chat with you, Andreas.
I'm super excited too. I got my gallon of coffee already going. So let's dive in and talk a little bit about what you do. And actually, here's how we can start. We can talk a little bit about who you are, what you've been doing all of this time that we haven't seen each other, and then how are you helping people? So Tanya spent 8 years in corporate real estate before walking away in 2020 to flip houses. So that leap grew into a 4-property Airbnb portfolio in the Twin Cities. I love the Twin Cities. Say hi to everybody out there for me. And led her to found Wealth in Her Hands, a movement helping women build wealth through real estate. Not only one house, 3 times at a time. So that is fantastic, Tanya. I think there's a lot in your story that you can share with us, and that a lot of course, our sisters are gonna probably take in and see if maybe they can get to where you've done, all of these things of investing in houses. Tell us a little bit about you and how did this came about?
Yeah, so I worked at a really large corporate real estate company for 10 years called CBRE. A lot of people actually know that it exists if they know anything about big real estate. So I was a project manager with them for about 10 years. One day, I think it was actually in 2017, I started flipping houses because one day I just felt I was sick of the corporate grind. I had a client that wanted to save $2,000 on a $7 million project, and I thought that was a pain in the butt because he was kind of actively making our jobs harder because of $2,000 on I'm like, this is such a drop in the bucket. So silly. But it's a lot of corporate stuff is like that. It's just kind of what you do. So I started talking to a friend from the gym. She told me I should be flipping houses. She had already planted the seed with me 6 months or a year prior. So I hopped into flipping houses. I think I had a house 3 months later, started listening to Bigger Pockets and all of that, started making offers. And weird fact, the first offer I ever made on an investment property, I actually got. And most people say it takes 5 or 10 offers the first time you ever do a house. Mine was the first one. We ended up not doing that project, which is great. It was probably too big, but we started flipping houses. I quit my corporate job just a couple of years later. And then one of our houses wouldn't sell because there was a lot of turmoil happening in COVID in Minnesota. And there was just a few things that were happening. So I couldn't sell a house. One of my buddies said, have you thought about making it into an Airbnb? I said no. And then he showed me the numbers that could be. And I talked it over in the household and we decided to furnish it, give it a whirl. And that was 6 years ago. And now we've had the most properties we've ever had at once was 5 short-term rentals, which is a hospitality business that just happens to sit on real estate investing. It is not a passive. I will not tell anybody and won't lie to people. It's not a passive business. And yeah, so now we've been running these and I love it. It's amazing.
I love it. It's amazing. I believe in it. Actually, there's something I tell, if you have a passion for hospitality to to really impact the feelings of a person when you are going somewhere. If you have that, nurturing type of mentality to people, if you love people and you love to make them feel good, I think this is a great business. Now, I want to ask a couple of things, because they're probably listening to us and saying, okay, how does that work? I mean, so for the
Mhm.
first time investor, if someone has ever owned an investment property, what should they do before buying their first short-term rental? Let's talk about that.
So if they're looking to make it into a short-term rental, the first thing they should do is call the city. Don't go onto a Facebook group and ask if short-term rentals are allowed. Don't ask your realtor. Don't ask anybody. Go to the actual source. And that could be your city, your county, your parish. There's a lot of different words America uses for these anyways. But find out if you can actually have a short-term rental there. And then also I recommend people go to Google and Google short-term rental plus whatever city it is, or Airbnb plus whatever city it is. I typically do Google alerts on this, and it's because you want to see if there's any rumblings of people saying, like, kiboshing them, because you could buy a property and somebody told you short-term rentals are okay there, but you didn't do your due diligence. And now you can't have a short-term rental there. Or they only give, 20 rental licenses a year. Like, this stuff is real.
Fantastic. You said that, because a lot of people, you have no idea how many people I've heard
Mhm.
saying, oh my God, I
Uh-huh.
bought it and I thought I was going to do an Airbnb. And next thing you know, the code, the limitations, the
Yeah.
HOA did not allow for
Uh-huh.
any of that. Great options. So second thing is, everyone talks about Airbnb and short-term rentals as a real estate investment. All right. So
Uh-huh.
passive, non-passive, that's really where we, and this is us, basically
Uh-huh.
knowing, how it works in the tax code for real estate property. So what do people
Uh-huh.
completely misunderstand about the business of Airbnb and short-term rentals?
I think in real estate, so I feel like I'm not an anomaly, but I'm different than other people. I was already investing in real estate and figuring out real estate before I got into short-term rentals. I think a lot of people that get into short-term rentals or Airbnb, it's usually an accident, or they didn't, like, they think of it hospitality first. They don't think of themselves as a real estate professional, or like an investor. Like, I think of this as, I'm an investor and then I happen to have a real estate company, or I mean an Airbnb company. I'm not an Airbnb company that happens to have real estate. The real estate is the base. That is the most important thing, because that's the whole reason that I want to shout it from the rooftops to a lot of women, is you're already taking care of people. So why not add some wealth to the fact that you take care of people and make money on it? Because there is some cash flow that is really awesome in short-term rentals, but you're essentially building your wealth long term, because it's about buying a house that now, I mean, if you have a 10-year-old kid and they graduate in 8 years and you want to have some kind of education fund for them, you could easily buy a house. You could either pay really big payments on it, and then you can use that money when they graduate to, you can use the cash flow to pay, for their rent when they get there. You could say, hey, this is a paid off asset. You can do whatever you want with it. You can live in it. You can rent it out yourself, or you can sell it, but this is your college fund and that's all you get to do. So I think about the wealth that comes with this. So I think the main thing to answer your question is about, this is a very active, like, short-term rentals are an active business. Depending on how many you want, you have to work at this. I have a system. Like, I love the fact that I built a system over the last 6 years that I don't have to work very much. I think I'm being generous when I say I work an hour a week in this business, but it's because I built a system and I have an assistant that does a lot of the stuff. If I had to do it myself, it might be 3 or 4 hours a week. And some weeks are crazier than others. And if you're a landlord, you already know this. There might be a week that you need a new roof, or you need to get rid of a tree that fell on the roof of the house that you own. And so you might have a burst of stuff you need to do, but then you might not have anything else for the next 8 months until you need to fill it again. So when it comes to this business, there's an active income component on top of your real estate investment. The real estate investment can be passive. I think the word passive is completely ridiculous, because I don't think a lot of real estate stuff is passive. It's, if somebody's telling you it's passive, the only way it's passive is if you already know, like, and trust somebody and you give them your money, and like, and trust them. So you are blindly giving them their money and you're not underwriting the deal that they're putting money into and stuff like that. But that's really the only version of mailbox money that I think exists, because You still, even long-term investments, you still have to find a tenant. And it doesn't matter if it's commercial, if it's short-term, if it's long-term, if it's midterm. It's passive is a silly word. It's not true.
That is true. No, no, very good breakdown, actually, Tanya. I mean, I think that, look, and we start basically with our first investments into maybe real estate. And we think, I rented and that's it because I've heard, because of a TikTok or because of whatever. I'm like, look, don't base yourself on the on the experience of a TikToker telling you just like, oh yeah, you just buy it and that's it. And no, that, I always like to dive in and understand what do the person knows about what they're getting themselves into. I tell you because we actually do consulting on franchising, expansion through franchising, and acquisition of franchises. And one of the things that we find is a lot of people have a misconception of what they're getting themselves into, aligning properly. You have a strong philosophy that we're inundated with automation, but we need connection, right? And I think you mentioned that. So what does that mean in the short-term rental business?
Yeah. So we have a pretty robust tech stack. And again, this all depends on like if you've only got one or two properties, your tech stack is different than five properties, 10, 15, 20, 500. Like those are all very different tech stacks and what you want to put into your business. My tech stack has a lot of things that are automated and a lot of things that aren't. So there are portions like there's this thing that I use called Host Buddy AI, and it really just helps me with random, I'm going to call them mundane questions. Can we check in early? Can we check out late? How far is this from, this stadium? How far is it from this event center? So AI is attached into mine. It takes into consideration the last 6 months of what I've said, how I talk. Like I'm from Minnesota. I don't know if you can hear it, but I'm from Minnesota. You can hear it. You can typically hear the way that I talk, my
Love
accent.
the Twin Cities, love the people out there saying hi to everybody.
But I talk a specific way. Regionally, I say you guys. Like some people say ladies and gentlemen. In the South, they say hey y'all, like that kind of stuff. So my AI actually talks like me because it says, hey, how are you guys doing? And it's so interesting. It totally takes into consideration how I talk to guests, how I, show up and how I would say things. So it takes that and then it answers questions for me. There are still specific questions that it can't answer for me. So I still have guest interaction no matter what. But it shortens the curve that now I can go to a movie and not feel weird about it. And I know that might seem like a very simple thing, but when you start off in short-term rentals, you don't feel like you can do anything without, because you're on call. Like if somebody can't get into your house, you have to care about not getting into your house. So there's very specific systems though that help with things like that. There's a lot of automations that you don't have to do longhand things anyways. You don't even have to price your property yourself. Like there's tech for that. So I still think there's a lot of really good interactions that I get to have with guests and with my communications. They feel warm and fuzzy. And it's so interesting because sometimes you'll get a review and they'll talk about how great you were at communicating and you never actually talked to them. Like you never said one word because it was your automations that all did that. And that's pretty neat.
No, I think it's look. I think this is what's happening, and we discuss this constantly. I mean, this is the reason why if you are listening to us right now through Spotify or YouTube, and you're watching us, well, this is actually us. All right, so it's not our AI. Now there are automations that you can put into your business that allows the flow of good customer service, kind of like what you're just saying, Tanya. I think that the importance of guest relationships, reviews, communication basically for the financial performance of the property. You just said good reviews, people feeling warm and fuzzy really makes sense. And there's automations that can help you with that. That is awesome. I love that you use that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, so let's talk about, and going back to, okay, I want to get into this business. What your mission, by the way, is to empower women to be entrepreneurs and get into short-term rentals. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I started a company called Wealth in Her Hands, and it is all about coaching women through short-term rentals. But honestly, the base of it, I just want more women to think about their future. I find it to be interesting. I mean, society is the way society is. Like this is like we all grow up a specific way. There's little tiny, percentage changes every year that go a certain way, but it doesn't matter in the end. Like it's kind of like what you hear on that. Well, I personally think women need to care about their financial future. You are at home. I know that this is I'm kind of putting people into a box, but again, society put them into a box. It wasn't me. A lot of women think that they're taking care of the household, so their husband or their partner is taking care of maybe their future. And, or sometimes households just aren't even thinking of their future. And I'm asking women, you need to think about your future. You have to wake up and feed your kids, make sure they're clothed, make sure they have stuff that's, for back to school, like all of this stuff. The same goes for your financial future, like your wealth. So I think a lot about what does that look like in 5, 10 years. You shouldn't wait 5 or 10 years to find out. Like this is an FAFO that you don't want to perform because you need to care about what does that look like and what happens if your spouse or your partner, something happens. Like there's divorces are very common and people die. Like, I mean, I had a friend whose husband passed away last year and she's still dealing with probate and she's going to be dealing with probate for another year or two. So you think about the fact that all of her assets are frozen, and she just so happened her husband hid money. So she found money and that might be what she has to live on. Like, can you imagine losing your spouse and then going 2 years, like maybe you're a stay-at-home mom. Well, you have to go get a job. I know that there's money there, but it doesn't matter if there's not like a real document to give you that money when he passed away. You actually have to go get a job until you can get that money. And that is a scary reality that I think a lot of people don't think of. So now I'm just like, okay, I want every woman in America to own 3 houses. And the reason I want every woman in America to own 3 houses is because you're already taking care of people. So why not use the skills that you already have? You might think you're silly. You might think you're dumb. That's not true. If you know how to cook dinner, if you know how to talk to your children when they're crying, if you know how to talk to the mailman, like you're already nurturing something. So why not like get paid for it? So that is a very long version of why I started Wealth in Her Hands, is thinking about why women need to take the front seat about this. Like you have to do everything anyways. So do a couple of things for yourself and know that this is a business that takes a while. It's not like something that's going to happen overnight. You probably already have money sitting. You might not even know that you do, but you have some money. Put it towards something that's going to make you money over the years. And yes, you're going to have to work hard at it, but getting your kids to say please and thank you, like just regularly, that takes time, right? It takes 3 years, takes 5 years, whatever it is. You're constantly doing these tiny little things. Short-term rentals are kind of like that. You just do these little things and then it gets easier and easier and easier. And then all of a sudden you wake up and you have 4 properties and you make over $100,000 a year. And you're like, oh, this is, this is so cool.
I love it. It's waking up to understanding how to be a strategist in life. I look, actually, we go through a lot of mergers, acquisitions, turnarounds, expansions. And some of the first questions that I ask is, okay, what's your status when it comes to marriage, kids, everything? Why? Because we're thinking about the impact. If you are not there, if something happens to you, guess what? Do you have key man insurance? If we're doing this merger, if we're partnering with you and maybe we're going into a partnership, well, how are we going to replace you if you're not here? How's your family going to replace you if you're not here? So those are the things that you got to think about and put all the guardrails to protect the greater good. What is the greater good? In the end, is the family. Nothing else matters. Look, I've met people with billions of dollars and completely poor, and I've met people with hundreds of thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars, but completely rich because they had a good life. So it's really understanding how to protect what's really the most important thing. Now, second thing is, I wanted to ask you because, should I, and this is a question, because I started investing, and really I started investing looking at my neighborhood and saying, hey, what houses are out here? How can I take this? So should a beginner buy their first property in their own neighborhood, or should they look for the best market regardless of where they live? What do you think?
This is such a loaded question, and it's because it depends. I think a lot of real estate, there is always like well, it depends. There's always an asterisk on everything because it's about like what works for you. I'm talking about, I'm here definitely on the rooftop shouting about short-term rentals because I think they really match my personality. And you talked about it in the beginning, is like, if you like to nurture, if you like people, if you like stories, this is a place for you. If you're a black and white person and like rules are super intense, the likelihood is this isn't a great place for you. So when it comes to actually investing and where you should invest, that's an also I don't know what works the best for you. There's a lot of people that like to think, well, I love to travel to this place and it's 3 hours from my house and I would really like a place there. And that's because they want to be able to use it. And, that's a good idea because you already like you like going there. You already like what's there. So you can recommend things, but you're also 3 hours away. So then you have to have a really good network of people already there, or you have to build a really good network of people. So I kind of think of what does your network kind of help with? Like if you're already kind of investing in your area, or you just know people in the area, do you know a plumber? Do you know an HVAC person? Do you know a handyman? Because those and then a cleaner are the most important pieces of your business. And that's how you run a good business is you need those people on call. You need them to answer their phone, maybe on a Sunday morning. So I would just say it depends. And then also, why are people coming to town? Like I live in the Twin Cities. This is an easier one. Like I'm an urban market investor because people are always coming to Minneapolis and St. Paul. They come the most in the summer, but even when it's disgustingly negative 20 degrees in the cities in the winter, people still come here because there are people in northern Minnesota, southern Minnesota that need to come to the cities to watch concerts, to watch games. They want to come and watch the Minnesota Wild. They want to watch football. So there's always people coming here. So that's why it works really well here. But there's data that supports that. So wherever you're thinking, you want to find out, are other people doing it there? Again, are there rules against doing that, against how many days they can rent? Because there are some markets that you're only allowed to rent 12 times a year. So you have to get 12 really good bookings and that's not necessarily worth it. So you want to go within that, but in your neighborhood, like I actually do live in the neighborhood, but I just started living here. Like I've had properties in this neighborhood for 6 years. And we've been trying to get into this neighborhood because we love it so much. So there are different versions of that, but you absolutely can look. There are also some very saturated places that you want to be careful with. Like everybody wanted to go to the Smoky Mountains, and there are so many rentals in the Smoky Mountains. That's actually, it's the most visited national park in the United States. So the amount of people are coming in it's in droves. But there are so many short-term rentals now there that somebody that actually has a really, really fancy and beautiful $1 million house with a pool in the backyard, and they're renting it for $400 a night or $300 a night because everybody has a fancy house with pool in the backyard. So you want to also be smart about like what's not saturated. So markets are like a whole thing, like there's a lot to learn about what market, but really to me, if you've got a good house, you've got a good asset, you figure out the amenities that work really well. You have to have a nice design. You can't just do gray walls. You can't just do Facebook Marketplace stuff. It's just not like it used to work really well. It doesn't anymore. So there's a couple of things you have to do more strategically, but you can kind of pick a market because whatever works for you is what's important. Is it going to give you anxiety to be 3 hours away from it? Because there could be a night where somebody can't get in and you have to figure that out. Can you do it from 3 hours away or do you want to do it from 30 minutes away? So totally up to you. It depends.
Fantastic. Everything you mentioned is actually really good. I'll tell you because we're evaluating projects right now. And actually, I just got back about 2 months ago from Columbus, Ohio, right? And we're looking at some developments out there. Same thing. You got to do the market research. You got to see what's driving people into the actual location, city, you name it. What developments are happening around the area? Are there multinational companies coming in? Guess what's going to happen? All those multinational companies are going to have executives coming in. They're going to have people driving or actually flying out there and getting the traffic, foot traffic, air traffic, you name it, that is going to come. So very good, and this is where you're really speaking to Tanya, about, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Do you think this is a good market? And make sure you comment and like and subscribe, to her channels that we're going to show in a little bit, and then our channels as well. So Tanya, I got a question. So what's more important, purchase price, occupancy, nightly rate, cash flow, appreciation, or tax benefits? What's really, what is more important? What will be the most important thing that you look at a property and say, I want to know this. Besides what you said earlier.
So this is a stacked question because it does depend on the person. Like I was really into cash flow. When we started, we needed some cash flow. We were flipping houses. Cash flow isn't always great when you're flipping houses. So I wanted cash flow coming in. Now I think about it and the cash flow is awesome. Super neat to have that. But I'm all about the long-term wealth portion of it. So I remember the first time We're just going to hop right into it. I love me some bonus depreciation and cost seg. This is one of the coolest parts about short-term rentals. This is the way to do, if you aren't ready to hop into a commercial project the way that Andreas does, but you still want some of those big tax advantages, this is a spot. So you can still get tax advantages with long-term rentals, but short-term rentals, you can actually do cost segregation studies on all of the stuff that you put in it, put on the outside. Like if you put up a fence, like all of those things are really big write-offs. And because of the big, beautiful bill, bonus depreciation is back 100%. It was supposed to be phasing out this year, and I think it was supposed to be at like 25% this year. Well, that just means that now you can accelerate depreciation, on your taxes. And that is beautiful because I remember the first time I did it, and I will be the first to admit it was small potatoes. We had like a $15,000 tax bill, and that was the first time I had gotten a $15,000 tax bill. And I'm like, holy crap, like, what does this even mean? Oh my gosh, what should I do? My accountant's like, yeah, we're just going to do a cost seg. And we got $8,000 back that year. And I was like, wait a minute, what? Like, how is that possible? And that was the first time that the clicks started happening. I was like, this is how the rich do that. Because I didn't grow up rich. I'm sure you didn't grow up rich. Hey, like most people don't grow up rich.
Nope.
So we didn't know how to do that. You're just kind of like watching TV and you're like, well, how do those guys have money? Well, it's things like this. It's these loopholes and they call them loopholes, but really they're just tax strategies.
It's a tax code.
Yeah. And we love to use it too. So I now am like, oh, I'm one of those big fancy people now that get to use cost segs and bonus depreciation. And so I think that is one of my favorite parts, but I'm 6 years in. So that being my favorite part, it's not necessarily other people's, but if your spouse or you make a lot of money, you can use that. Like instead of giving the government $200,000 from your tax bill, why not put that $200,000 into a property that you're already then you have an asset. Like instead of like, I really do think of it as, okay, you're losing $200,000 or you're putting $200,000 into your own building and building your wealth. Like those are two very different ways to look at it. And business owners that are listening, you should own, like the first thing I ask if I meet somebody who has a salon, an HVAC company, I don't actually care what company it is. I'm like, do you own your building? And I love having those conversations, especially with the people that do own their building, but the other people, I'm like, you should try to figure out how to own your building. I don't actually care if you do short-term rentals. I just think you should build wealth. Like this is so important because you always have that asset now. The whole reason that McDonald's is one of the richest companies in the world is because they're a real estate company that just so happens to do food on top of it. And that was, the concept by, I don't remember the dude's name, but that was the smart play on this. And there's lots of examples of very smart plays of real estate companies that happen to do XYZ. Like, they happen to cook chicken sandwiches. They happen to provide, products. Like, I don't even care what the product is anymore. Just, you should have real estate. So yeah, like, I think when you ask that question of like, what's the best part? Depends on the person. There are lots of ways to make things make money. There are ways to upsell. Like I need to break even. Like my goal is to make a couple $1,000s a month over 12 months in net profit. Like I want to walk away with at least $25,000 per property, and the more the merrier kind of thing. But that I see it as success. Your nightly rate, like all of those things come into play, but we're looking at a 12-month schedule essentially of all of this stuff, not only month to month, because some months are better than others. But yeah, it just depends on you. Like you might just want tax advantages. You might just want the net worth build. You might want cash flow. You might just want to talk to people. Maybe don't get into short-term rentals just to talk to people because you're lonely, but still an option.
That is awesome, Tanya. Thank you so much. And again, I want to respect your time, and I know we're running a little longer, but I want to make sure that we land this airplane of Airbnbs and short-term rentals and how to invest in that. I believe that we are in the K-shaped economy. So right now, whatever you have, you need to make sure that you get into the asset acquisition stage of your life. Otherwise, if you do not do that, especially right now and with the tax code, with all of those benefits. So Tanya, there's so many other questions I want to ask you, but I want to keep it short today, but I want to have you back for sure so we can continue
Excellent.
the conversation. I am going to maybe walk us through a little bit about how people can find you. And I do have a couple of places where I think people can find you. So you're on Facebook, right, Tanya?
Yes, Facebook is actually the place that I'm most active because I'm looking for people, my age to actually to reach out to me, because honestly, I love talking about short-term rentals, and I think like you can do this stuff and you now have the skills forever. Like it's, to me, it's an infinity of learning, because now once you have the skill of buying a house, making it into a short-term rental, you can make as much or as little money as you possibly want. Like it is up to you and your attitude and your, your personality.
Fantastic. I love that actually you are empowering women and families to really protect, what's most important, which is the legacy and everything. So you are in Facebook, Tanya Rooney 28. You can find her on Facebook. In Instagram, you can also be found, for what I see here, Tanya Rooney MN. So you can get in contact with Tanya and follow her journey through, going through all of these short-term rental strategies, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you can find me on most of those awesome social media sites. We're working on redoing our website, so I don't really want to give that out. But I'm always happy to talk to people about short-term rentals. If you're looking at doing any of this, we're starting a fall cohort where everybody's. I'm going to actually buy another property alongside everybody. We're going to talk about how you buy it, market analysis, amenity analysis, all that good stuff, and then the next one, or like still within the cohort, then the next event is going to be about design and making sure that you're ready to actually set these things up, because you cannot do basic short-term rentals anymore. You're not going to make the money that you need to. And then the last one is literally about like, how do you hire your team? How do you communicate with guests? Like we weed out, like out of 6 years and over 1,000 stays, we've only had 3 parties we've ever had to deal with. And it was because typically I can weed these people out, and there's certain communications that we do to weed these people out, but it doesn't always happen. So there's a reality of it that we needed to deal with. So you set everything up, you set it up for success, I guess. That's the best version of this. And then you just see how it goes.
That's awesome, Tanya. I wanna make sure that you come back and tell us all about that. Actually, or maybe walk us through and we do a little bit of that. What it took, to get that property done. But I do encourage people to get in contact with people that are trying to make an impact and educate on all of these things. This is what we do here, of course, in the Business Money Podcast. And myself. I go all over the country doing presentations with entrepreneurs, business owners, investors into what? Into properties and into businesses. Because guess what? Everything around you is built and maintained and invested in Americans, people trying to make an impact in their communities, protecting their families. And that's what we got to support. So, Tanya, thank you so much. I really appreciate, that we walked through all of this and you gave us all of these things. There's so much that we can go into. Next time, we're going to have you back. And of course, we're going to continue the conversation. Okay. So if you are looking at us and, maybe got a little bit of value of all of this conversation, please follow, like, subscribe. Make sure that you get in touch with Tanya, of course, with us here as well. And of course, let's get the United States of America. It's a beautiful country when it comes to investments, tax code, advantages, the abilities for families to take care of each other. I believe in that. I believe in entrepreneurship and empowerment. So I love that you are also trying to impact, of course, of all of our sisters and our families into doing that, Tanya. Any call to action to close the podcast?
No, I would just say, honestly, if this gave you any oomph to do something, just go. You have to try it. Just try. I don't care. Like, I love short-term rentals. They work really good for me. But whatever it is, you should really be looking at your wealth. Like, don't say I'll do that next year, because you'll do that for the next 10 or 15 years. Just think about what you want your life to look like someday. And remember that you don't want to be working at Walmart at 70 years old. Like, you see those people that are doing that, and don't be that person. Like, really take a couple of calculated risks, especially if you're under 50 or if you're under 55, you still have time to actually create some real wealth. Like, we did this within 10 years. And I never thought I would have a net worth. I saw those kinds of things and I was like, I don't even know what that means. And now I have a net worth. I want it to be bigger, but it doesn't matter. Like, a $200,000 net worth is better than a $0 net worth. Like, think about this as assets and investments, not buying liabilities. Like, think about buying a house that makes you enough money that pays for your car. Like, that is a beautiful version of math that I want more women to be thinking of. And honestly, men can do this. They're great at it too. It's just, I have plenty of dude friends that do this. I just am all about like, how can we empower more women to do this, to think about their future and their family's future and, start building your wealth. So that's it.
Thank you, Tanya. I really appreciate your words and, of course, your focus on empowering people. That's what I believe in and as well. So, Tanya, we, of course, are going to invite you to join us into the next one, which we will have it soon. And we're going to go deeper into the numbers. I think this was a great starting conversation, but there's a lot more to dive in. There's ways. You may have questions. Like Tanya's example was very good. Actually, I'm going to take with me. You didn't buy a short-term rental where you live. You bought it in an area that really made sense for you. And then later you actually moved into that area. That is a great example of how to choose wisely where to invest. This is one of the, nuggets that you can take with you. Absolutely. That's a good one. So Tanya, thank you so much. And of course, we're going to see you in the next podcast.
This episode is brought to you by Evermar Capital, Business Capital, and Consulting. Whether you're buying a business, expanding through franchising, or looking for growth capital, Evermar Capital helps entrepreneurs and business owners access the funding, strategy, and connections they need to succeed. Build smarter. Scale faster. Visit Evermar Capital today. Connect with our team and turn business opportunities into results.